All right, everybody, welcome to Unscripted One-on-One. And we were just talking a minute ago, but I could not be more excited, more honored than I am tonight. I sent this invite out. Every now and then you send one out, and you're just not sure, if somebody's going to say yes or not. But Zach Fleer was kind enough to say yes. So I've been looking forward to this one, man, for a week. I think we put this on the schedule about a week ago. I'm fired up. I'm excited. I think we may extend our half hour tonight. We got a lot to talk about, but so why don't you introduce yourself real quick? Why don't we start there? Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so my name is Zach Fleer. I'm the co-owner, co-founder of 270 Hoops. We cover high school basketball in Central Ohio, and we host all types of exposure events. We do scouting, news, videos, social media content. It's a full-scale operation with a team of about 7 or 8 guys. And we've actually started covering football too. So 270 Gridiron is kind of a side project we're doing, more of a hobby, but it's taken off pretty quickly as well too. So we're passionate about high school sports and passionate about Central Ohio. And, we cover the area like crazy. And we've provided, some social media content that was very unique when it started and continues to evolve and grow as the years go on. So we are Central Ohio high school sports junkies is how I would describe us, but mainly in basketball more than anything.
Man, that's awesome. And I had a couple of notes here that I made today before we met. And again, everybody knows this is unscripted, so we'll see where it goes. But I want to say we met about, maybe 2 years ago, or was it a year ago? When you started 270 baseball. So you just started to dip your toe in that water, and we had lunch at Rusty Bucket, if I remember right. That was about, I want to say 40 pounds ago on the plus side for me, and the negative side for you. You look great, man. You obviously you put some time in there. So why don't we start there, man? What did you decide to do? And you look great. You look fantastic. What did you decide to do there on a personal side?
So my wife and I, in April 2019, shout out to my wife, Lauren. She's amazing. I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff without her. So I want to get that out first. But we went to Pittsburgh in April 2019. And each year I take about a spring trip once the season's over to kind of refresh and recharge. Couldn't do that this year, obviously, with COVID and everything happening. So had to quarantine. But we did that in 2019. And really, I had like a revelation almost. We were at this hotel and the elevator was packed, so we walked up the stairs and I went to the second floor and I was out of breath when I got up there. And I'm like, okay, dude, like I've been an athlete my whole life. I've played baseball, basketball, and been pretty athletic, but got to a point where I was 225, 230 pounds and just was not feeling good. I had heartburn and indigestion all the time. It seemed like I had back pain a lot, and really it was that weekend where we both looked at each other and we're like, we need to change something here. Like we need to stop going out to eat so much. We need to get a little more active, and made a change then. And I took off that summer in 2019 from AAU stuff because I knew if I was on the road, every other weekend and you're in the gym till 10 p.m., I'm going to go to Taco Bell after the event because I've been, covering the game for 12 hours. It seems like for me, anytime after 11 p.m. when I'm driving home, like Taco Bell's the only thing that sounds good. And I needed to eliminate myself from having that temptation and those type of thoughts and desires. So hold on, sorry.
Unscripted. It's all good.
So basically, I'm trying to get my screen okay, here we go. So I decided I was going to make a lifestyle change, and what I did was really just change my diet and looked at it as if, I didn't gain all my weight in a matter of, 2 months. So I wasn't going to lose it all in 2 months. And we stopped eating out altogether. We didn't have fast food for almost 2 months when it started off. And it just grew into something that I became passionate about because then at that point, I was packing my lunch for the first time. I work in the car business. So with that, we get a lot of bad food in. Just for an example, just yesterday, Mondays I eat clean. Like that's my restart. And in the morning, someone brought in Wendy's breakfast. And then by lunchtime, like Huntington Bank had brought in an ice cream truck to our dealership. I said no to both. So I wasn't doing that before. And the lifestyle change I made, though, I cut my calories under 1,800 calories per day. I started eliminating like all added sugar. I stopped eating, white bread, and I stopped drinking pop altogether. I drank nothing but water. I drank about 120 ounces of water a day, and I was walking 3 miles a day. I was taking long walks on my lunch breaks, and over the course of probably 7 or 8 months, the weight fell off. And I was really nervous going into the high school season because I was like, man, I might put this weight back on. I'm gonna be busy, and I didn't. I stayed disciplined, and shout out to my wife. She keeps me accountable. We've been working out 3 times a week here since May, because our diet, we kind of fixed the diet. So it's like Sunday through Thursday, we eat at home. We try not to eat out, try not to eat a bunch of sugar, and we work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that was all her. She started that workout plan, and she helped me with the diet change because, she does the grocery shopping. So if she's not doing that, then it wouldn't happen. So I couldn't have done it without her.
Man, I tell you, I'm proud of you. Those are big time life changes, and I need to do the same. But that being said, man, I'm proud of you. Honestly, like I said, last time I saw you, it was probably, I don't even know, 30, 40 pounds ago, both ways for you and me. Unfortunately, I went the other way, but man, that's dedication. So proud of you for that. But I'm sure a lot of people are not dialing in to hear that conversation, but I just want to let you know that, man, I don't see it too often. So I want to let you know, I'm proud of you. That's good stuff. So you already answered one of my questions in what you were saying there, but so let's start at the very beginning. It's like, take me back to the beginning of, because I'm fascinated. That's and that's why I'm so excited to have you on. I am absolutely inspired and excited by watching you grow. I don't know if it's a business or if it's just a passion that 270 has become. I tell people when I hear your name, see your name, if it ever comes up in conversation, in my opinion, and I mean this full force, you're the most powerful man in high school basketball recruiting and contact and all those things right now. And I mean that. And you may already realize that or embraced it. I'm not sure, but man, you're the most powerful name and voice in, at least in Ohio, in the 270 hoops world. Right. You are that most powerful person. And so I'm fascinated to watch you grow, watch 270 hoops grow. And then, like you said, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but going to baseball and then football and all those other things, because the reality is what you touch turns to gold at this point, and I'm fascinated by it. I'm inspired by it, and I love to learn from other people and hear stories. So that's why I wanted to have you on. Where did you start with 270, and how have you just continued to? And I know, and we'll probably talk about this in a second too, but there's been a lot of grind. That this thing just didn't happen overnight. You didn't just sit back and tweet and all of a sudden 270 happens. So, man, let me let you take it from there. But I'd love to kind of see that evolution or hear that evolution and have other people realize how hard you've had to work to make this happen.
Yeah. So my whole life, I've had a dream of like being a sports writer. I remember being in elementary school, and I would write in journals, literally like fake fictional football career stories. I had this quarterback that I made up called like Tubbs McGrubbs or something. It was like 5'5", 400 pounds, but ran like a 4.2 40. I would write journals, like fake sports stories. I would watch, kids would wake up and watch cartoons. I was watching SportsCenter every morning. I remember being at the doctor when I was like 5, and they would ask kids about like Lion King and Land Before Time. And I was talking to the doctor about my favorite NFL logos. And I'm in kindergarten, and kids are like spelling cat and dog. And I was spelling like Cleveland and Oakland and Duke and Kentucky. And I've been a sports wired media guy like my whole life. And I just had this dream of being a sports writer. And in high school, I just played baseball in high school. Like, people think that there's like college coaches that think I played like Division III college basketball. And I'm like, I wish. I mean, I do. But in high school, I just played baseball. That was what I was passionate about. And I loved basketball. I played pickup all the time. I'd go to the Grove City YMCA, Grove City Rec Center. And I was a Central Crossing dude. So we didn't get along with Grove City guys. So I'd go there and like talk my crap, and we'd get into it. But that's what I did. I would go play at the Rec Center, go watch LeBron and the Cavs, and then go do my homework and go to bed. But It was really in high school, my junior year, when Jared Solinger was at Northland. He was a senior. Trey Burke was same class as me, 2011. Jerry Dixon was at Columbus East, and Ty Kitsch ran City League Hoops TV. It was a YouTube channel. I was very fascinated with it because I just was able to watch all these highlights of kids around the city, and a little seed was kind of planted there as far as like my passion for City League basketball, local basketball. I got in contact with Anthony Murphy from Cap City Preps, and he was covering basketball, football at that time in the City League, and he kind of showed me the ropes a little bit and introduced me to some people. And it kind of spiraled off. I had other passions. I was a senior in high school the next year, and when you're a senior, like you're worried about prom and you're worried about just stuff that really doesn't matter a year later. But I got away from it. I had met up with Jason Morrow. We were friends in high school. So my co-owner, Jason Morrow, we were friends in high school. We were both sports nuts, and he had a website called Behind the Box Score that he had started up. I started writing for that when I was in high school at the end of my junior year, kind of going into my senior year. And then he went to Ohio State for college. He went to Mansfield for the branch campus, and I had a job and I was just very busy. So it went away, and I was into other passions and art forms and stuff that I really liked. I was into hip hop and, produced a lot of stuff for some people. I had rappers coming over. I was mixing track. That's a whole other world that no one knows about, but
I did that. I didn't know that.
Like I tried to rap a little bit. I did, producing and engineering, and I was big into like Jay Dilla and Nas and old 90s hip hop, and that's where my like R&B love came from, because I would hear it in the samples from my favorite hip hop beats from Dilla and Ninth Wonder and Dr. Dre and all these guys. But so that like music became my thing. It was like my passion into my freshman year of college, and then started spiraling off. I started working again, and my sophomore year of college at Ohio State, that would have been 2012. Westland High School, I went to Central Crossing. Westland High School was 4-0. And like, if you know anything about Westland, like when they're good at anything, it's like, well, okay, I need to check this out. Like, what's going on? They had two starters on that team that grew up in my neighborhood at Holton Alkire, southwest side of Columbus. Kewan Grace, Devin Williamson lived in my neighborhood. We played pickup all the time. Those guys had transferred from Central Crossing to Westland. They were 2 years younger than me, so they were seniors back then. And I decided I want to go see them. I just want to watch a game. It was a Friday night. I was working as a busboy at Dave & Buster's at the time, and it was like the only Friday that I had off. And I was like, well, I'm going to go watch this game. And I remember I couldn't get anyone to go with me, and I was trying to convince my younger brother, who's 4 years younger than me, or 6 years younger than me, to come to the game with me, and he didn't want to do it. My mom like forced him. She's like, Kyle, you're going or you're grounded. And I thank my mom for doing that, because if she doesn't force him to go, I probably don't go to the game, because I was 20 years old, or I was 19 at that time, and I was very socially awkward. I didn't like doing stuff by myself. So I wasn't just going to go to a game by myself. So Kyle went with me. We go to the game. They're playing at Thomas Worthington. It was a battle, went down to the wire. And I remember Kewan Grace, his older brother, Shawan, who was 2 years older than me. We went to high school together. He was playing football at Findlay. He sent me a message, I think on Twitter, and was like, hey, can you let me know how my brother does tonight? I can't make it to the game. I was like, I'm just going to live tweet the scores. Just follow that. I don't have to text you. Just follow my Twitter. And at that time, I was like a Twitter power user. I was a dude that was tweeting like 80 times a day about any thought that came across my head. So I've had to do all types of scrubbing on my account, because it was just 19-year-old me not covering basketball, had a lot of opinions about the NBA, about all types of stuff where I didn't always use the best language. So that's where I was at that time. And that's where it kind of started. That game was a good game. And I was like, man, this is fun. Like, I want to keep covering this team. I love that team. I started with that Westland team. It was Percy Long was the senior guard on that team, and he was amazing. Like 5'9", played like he was 6'10", and I just fell in love with that team. And I started driver helping at UPS to pay for tuition the next semester, and I decided I'm going to keep going to games. I remember I went to Hilliard Davidson, played Westland at home, and I literally was wearing my UPS like work uniform at the game, live tweeting it. And it was there over at Christmas break that I came into contact with Darren Scarberry, who now works for Slam Magazine as a videographer. He was fresh out of college at that time. He went to Grove City, ended up going to Capitol. He was filming Westland games just for the fun of it, because that's what he went to college for. And I saw those videos. He had a video, Westland played at West, and it was like amazing production. And I just, out of a whim, I didn't know him. I just reached out to him like, hey, My name's Zach. I went to Central Crossing. We're kind of from the same area. I see that you're doing videos. I'm going to these games. I love writing. I'm studying, communication in college. We should start a blog together. You can do the videos. I'll do the writing." And we did that. Darren's dad, had a URL already paid for called Scarberry Media, or Scarberry Productions that turned into Scarberry Media. So that's where it started. That was the 2012-13 season. I was the Westland High School beat writer. The only following I had was from the kids at Westland. It was a very grassroots type thing starting off. I roped Jason back into it. And I said, "Hey, like, you could cover like Westerville North. You could find a team that could be your team." He was still looking to find that. Well, the thing with Darren and I, we covered every Westland game. Westland made it to the district semifinals. And I'm going to be completely honest. Like, I was a Westland homer. I was covering these games, but I'm sitting at half court, like yelling at, like, I hate to say it now, but like I was yelling at like Kevin Vanata when they were playing Upper Arlington. I didn't know Kevin Vanata at that time. And I was just a fan. I was like a West Side dude that happened to tweet about the games. And I had a flip phone too. That's the thing people don't realize. Like, I had a flip phone. I had to text to Twitter to get my tweets out.
Goodness.
I remember when I got my iPhone, I'm like, man, these dudes are not going to be able to mess with me now, because I was beating up with a flip phone. Now I got an iPhone and I got a Twitter app and everything. But that's where it started. And Darren and I, once Weston was eliminated, I covered Northland High School because they were undefeated into the state tournament. And the season ended and we both looked at each other and we were like, let's cover some AAU. His parents had frequent flyer points built up. We got a bunch of free hotels. We just had to get ourselves there. And we went to AAU events in the summer of 2013 all over the country. Darren and I, and then Jason would come along for some of the trips. And I was working I had stopped working at Dave & Buster's. Here's another thing. During that winter, I got fired from the Ohio State call center. I was working there. I started there in like summer of 2012 into 2013. And it was the most embarrassing. Like, I got fired because I told a joke when I thought my phone was off, and it wasn't, and it ended up on some lady's voicemail. I said math debate in this joke, right? Well, the lady thought I said masturbate and thought I left a message about masturbation. So by the time I got called in, like, my boss was like, "Hey, we got this awful voicemail that you left on some lady's machine and we have to let you go." And I didn't know what it was. I was like, "I'm so sorry. I don't know what I said," until my buddy, like 3 months later, Daniel, who was a manager there, I'm like, "Dude, what did I even say?" He's like, "The lady said you said masturbate," and I knew exactly what it was. I'm like, "No, like, I said masturbate," but who would have thought those things would rhyme? But anyways, I was working all types of odd jobs to do this, and we covered events all over the summer. I went to the TNBA Top 100 camp. The first player I ever interviewed in person was D'Angelo Russell, which, to go from, my boy Corey Beasler and Kersey Long and these guys to that was just crazy. I watched Thon Maker play in that event. I watched Karl Anthony Towns and Devin Booker and Miles Turner and all these guys that are in the league now. And that spiraled on. We went to Top 100 camp, Adidas Invitational in Indianapolis. We went down to Atlanta for the Battle of the South. We went down to Naples, Florida, or not Naples, but we went down to Orlando, where the NBA bubble is at now, to cover the AAU National Showcase, the national tournament. And that was where my following really started to take off, because I was covering these, 4 or 5 star guys.
Right.
I had been hired by 24/7, 2 sites at 24/7, the Kansas site and the Georgetown site, writing about their prospects. And it was fun. I mean, I made connections with guys like Steven Zimmerman, who was top 10 in the nation. And I'd been retweeted by like Malik Newman, who was the number 1 player. And I watched D'Angelo Russell play his last AAU game. And this is July 2013. I'm sitting at that pavilion, and Thad Matta is like 2 rows down on the other side. And he starts to leave to get up. And I was like, "Hey, Coach Matta, my name's Zach. I go to Ohio State. I love D'Angelo. Like, it's so cool." And he talked to me, and I was just like floored that the head coach at Ohio State like talked to me, which is crazy, because when I was a driver helper at UPS, I was in the Powell area, and my driver literally dropped off stuff at Thad Matta's house. I walked up to his gate.
Yeah.
So I went in the span of like 7 months from delivering packages to his house to talking to him about D'Angelo Russell. And that was cool. Like, I was just floored. And then I walk up the stairs there to the pavilion. Anyone who's been there knows what I'm talking about. And 2 kids from the Columbus area, Manny Powell from Gahanna, Chris Bird from Columbus South, they're playing for Hidden Gems program. they run up to me. They're like, "Hey, Zach, I think they finished like second in their silver or bronze bracket, whatever it was." And they were so excited. And it was in that moment that I had like this revelation that was like, why am I like wasting time covering these 4 or 5 star guys that, they don't know me. They don't care what I have to say, when I could cover the kids in Columbus that know me. They appreciate anything I have to say about them, and they're going to love the coverage. And it was at that moment that I decided I want to create something in Columbus like what ESPN has for the 4 and 5 star prospects. And the seed was planted there. It wasn't able to develop for another 2.5 seasons, because after that summer, I got hired by Land Grant Holy Land, the Ohio State website, because I was sending them scouting reports on prospects and guys that Ohio State was recruiting for so long that they finally were like, "Hey, let's just bring you on." I left Scarberry Media to do that. The next year, Prep Hoops Ohio hired me to launch their Ohio site, and they told me that it would be, half paid articles, half free articles. By that point, like, my passion was to provide coverage for kids in Columbus. It was really the city league to start off, like, because there was nobody doing it at that time. There was no one really going to games. I helped a kid like Charles Holland at West, who ended up playing football at Tiffin, but he was a leading scorer in Central Ohio and had no film and had never heard from a college coach for basketball. And I just thought that was unbelievable. Like, you're averaging 25 points per game in an area where there's Jack Gibbs and Jay Sean Tate and Javon Bess, and you're averaging more points per game than them, and a college coach doesn't even know who you are. That's where it kind of was, that passion, like identifying kids, providing exposure for them, an opportunity for them to further their careers. Like, it was planted in that 2013-14 season, because that's when I officially branched out. And I was a grinder. I went to open gyms damn near every day. I would go to Groveport on Saturday mornings to go to their open gym and meet the coaches. I went to just about every school you could think of to introduce myself to the coaches that were around, to the players that were around. And it's grown like crazy. It was after that Prep Hoops year where I had a disagreement with, the CEOs and the guys that run that company. And, they have a business to run, so they weren't wrong with what they said, but, they were like, "Hey, you're covering some of these teams, really city teams that there's not a lot of subscribers from those schools. And, we, for the best of our business, like, we don't want you going to those games because they're not subscribing. We'll find ways to cover those kids." And that really rubbed me the wrong way, because it went directly against kind of where my heart was and where my vision was. So when that happened, I was like, I don't need these guys as much as they need me. My audience is going to follow me no matter where I go. So why not own my own thing? And I have to give a lot of credit to Joey Mueller, who owns Flag Football Fanatics. I was working for him during the summer, I think in 2014, because I was literally broke because I was just going on AAU trips and not getting paid for the basketball stuff. And he just heard my passion and like my knowledge. And he was like, "Dude, you don't need to work for anybody else. Like, you need to run your own stuff, because anyone else is just going to hold you back. You be able to control your own narrative." And that's where that, entrepreneurship was kind of, that seed was planted as well. But it was in 2015 where I graduated from Ohio State. Prep Hoops was paying me like $1,000 a month, and I couldn't leave because at that time I needed that money. And it was when I got a full-time job, and I was interning at the Columbus Chamber of Commerce. I had a conversation with one of the top guys there, and I was like fresh out of college. He's like, "Man, what do you want to do? Like, what's your dream?" And I was like, "My dream is to find a full-time job that pays me a decent enough salary, that's weekdays, Monday through Friday, that I can go cover basketball at nights and on the weekends." And he just looks at me crazy and was like, "That's your dream?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is. Like, I love covering hoops." And he just thought that was crazy. He's like, "No, go find a career." And I'm like, "No, I don't want to find a career where I hate what I do 8 hours a day. I drive home and then I have an unhappy marriage and kids that drive me nuts. Like, I don't want to do that. I need a passion, and this is my passion. It makes me feel unlike any other thing." And that's, by the grace of God, like, that's exactly what has happened, because I got a full-time job at Tansky Toyota. They offered me a position that I, quite frankly, like, maybe didn't deserve, and just taking it and ran with it. I'm at Buckeye Nissan now, and people, when they like, "Oh, you have a full-time job, like you sell cars." I don't sell cars. Like, I'm in the internet department and I love it. It's a job that I'm on the computer all day, so it really coincides with what I do with media. So it's been a blessing. And now, when I got to that space where I didn't need Prep Hoops anymore, I didn't need the money they were paying me, and I could make my own money and not have to charge kids, that's when the possibility for 270 Hoops became a thing. I got with Jason Morrow. He was at Future 150 at the time. Same problems. Like, they were a paywall site. He didn't like that. He just wanted to cover the games. He wanted to cover high school basketball and not 5th and 6th grade prospects in Indiana like that. He wasn't trying to do it for events and exposure. He was trying to cover the game, and we were a perfect match. And I was like, let's do this. And he's like, what are we going to call it? Like, Central Ohio basketball, Columbus Hoops. I'm like, nah, man, 270 Hoops. And he's like, what? I was like, 270 Hoops. And initially, he didn't like the idea at first, and he turned around eventually. But I was like, think about it. We can use the 270 Interstate logo. We put a basketball over the 0. I said, everybody who lives in Central Ohio knows what 270 is. I said, if we do this well over time, when people see that sign, they're going to think of us, and they're not going to think of the Interstate. And that's stuff we don't have to pay for. And when you go on Google and you type in 270 Hoops at that time, you couldn't find anything. It was like, did you mean this? Did you mean this? The minute we make Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, website, we're going to be number 1 on Google. We don't have to pay for that. And there's so many businesses that have to pay for that SEO that we don't have to, because our name's so unique, right, and so niche to this area. And that's where it started in 2015. We started that year. When this began, we drew out like a business plan, like our 5-year plan. Like, we want to run events and provide exposure. And we've done every single one of those things, but it's grown organically. Like, yes, it has been strategic, but I truly feel like this is what God has called me to do. And that's why I have not gotten money hungry. It's why I haven't got greedy. That's why I've changed that's why my faith has really driven me to understand that, yes, this is what I do, but it doesn't define me. It's not my identity. You know, my identity is in Christ first and foremost. I'm a child of God before anything that I do. And that's helped me to embrace competition or like people in my space and not cast them away or treat them unfairly because I feel they're competing with me. That's been the biggest shift for me in the last year, is getting deeper in my faith and understanding that God has given me this platform. I have to not abuse it. I have to not take it for granted, understand what it is, and then continue to walk in the steps that he has for me. So that's been my biggest thing. And I think that's why we've been able to continue to grow, because I'm doing what's been called, you know, what I feel God has blessed me with. It wouldn't feel this way if that wasn't the case. I mean, you know, when something feels right, it just feels right. When it feels wrong, that's the Holy Spirit telling you, like, hey, that guilt you're feeling that for a reason. So it's been a blessing to see how it's all developed. And that's the story. It's long-winded, but you have to explain every single part of it, because you don't get the full story. A lot of people think like 270 Hoops is just this big thing. Like, no, man, it started with a flip phone, a notebook, and Westland High School, like, to where it is now. It's just unbelievable.
3 things. If you ever put them up on a board and I said, hey, Westland High School, flip phone, and, you know, you just said, there's no way that's going to succeed. I'm going to be, you know, but to your point, man, God's good. And I think when you're in that space and when you know you're doing what his will is, then these things just happen and they can't be explained. So, man, there was a lot in that, and we're right at that half hour, so hopefully you're good. I'm ready to keep rolling if you are.
My wife said you're going to go over a half hour because you talk too much. So she was right.
Hey, I asked the question and you filled in the space, and like I told you when I sent you the invite, man, I'm just providing a stage, a microphone, and a spotlight. This is your show, and you definitely answered every question I had within that. I think the important thing that everybody needs to realize, and I know we get this a lot in our business, people think that they see ESPN and they see the sideline reporters, or they see, you know, these things like yourself, and they think, oh man, I could just go do that now because I got Twitter. No, man, you got to grind. And the point in what I took away from what you just said is I counted what you said, 2013. So that's seven years at least just to get to where you are today. That's 7 years of nights in the gym, nights on the road, eating Taco Bell. I mean, just to recap a lot of what you said, the short version is you had to grind. You had to put in the time. You didn't just become Zach Vlier 270 Hoops overnight, man. That was a lot of investment. And so it leads me almost to what I want to ask you next. The thing that I took away from when we met and had lunch that day, you know, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, 40 pounds ago, is you have a passion, and you touched on it a tad bit, and I want you to go back to it, because I think, again, this is when you talk about your God-given drive and gift, you have a passion for You don't want to just chase down the 5-star guys all over the country. It sounds like you've had the opportunity to do that, and you've experienced that life. Your passion, and something I appreciate so much about you, is the guys in the inner city that are maybe not being seen, the guys that maybe not and no disrespect to UA. UA is obviously a powerhouse, Liberty powerhouse. Like, you can think of all these schools that are powerhouses when it comes to hoops. You're going to the gym where it's not a powerhouse, or it's not a gym, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going to those gyms where the guys may not be on the front page, or there may not be a spotlight down there, and you are bringing those guys out to where they have an opportunity. And I think you've said that you want to introduce them to those coaches because they're just as good as a Jay Sean Tate, as you said. So can you touch on that a little bit? Because that, to me, that I took that away from our lunch that day. I've never forgotten it. The passion that I heard from you about those guys is what I appreciate. I don't want to say anybody can cover the big schools, but a lot of guys everybody's got Twitter.
Right.
You are putting in the work in places that I think, in a way, that's almost a ministry to get those guys that opportunity. Is that fair? And can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, no, that's been the passion from day one. It's giving me chills just thinking about, like, when I started with Westland. I mean, Westland, no one covered Westland either. Like, that was new. It was just cool for. I remember, like, kids I went to high school with were like making fun of me, like, "Why are you covering Westland? You went to Central Crossing. We don't do that." And I'm like, it's not just Central Crossing at this point. Like, I genuinely enjoy it. And it was, again, that 2013-14 season. That was like the defining season for me as far as my visions, my reasons for doing things. There was a kid that I grew really close with, Kean Frederick, that went to Franklin Heights. He had lost like 50 pounds and grown 6 inches between his junior and senior year. He played JV as a junior, had a great senior year. I went to cover the first game I saw. They played at Olentangy Orange. I think it was like Christmas break. It was like a 2 p.m. game. I went up there. He was amazing. I saw him again a couple more times. I can't remember now who they played. I think they played Delaware Hayes and then like Mount Vernon in the tournament. I saw him against Grove City too. They beat Grove City and he was amazing. But I had followed him, and through my exposure, and I was obviously the brand wasn't as big. I had like 4,000 or 5,000 Twitter followers maybe back then. But I had written about him being a 6'6" post, and took him on his first visit to Owens Community College, where he got his first offer up there. He went up there for a year. Some things happened. He had to leave Owens, and he helped him. I didn't do this all myself, but gave him a nice recommendation to go to Sinclair Community College. Where he goes to Sinclair, he plays 2 years there. He becomes an All-American, gets a full ride scholarship to Kent State, plays 2 years at Kent State, and then now he played his first year overseas in Georgia, in Europe last year. Like, he put the work in, but I don't know if, he becomes a professional basketball player if I don't go to that Olentangy Orange game. Like, I just don't know if that happens, because there was just no light being shined on Franklin Heights at that time. There's another kid like Antonio Givens from West High School in the class of 2016. West is a program I don't think they film their games. So if you're a kid at West and 270 or Cap City Preps, or somebody's not coming to your games, chances are you're not getting footage. Like, no one's filming you. He was a kid that I went to a game. It was the same night that I attended a vigil for Marshawn McCarroll, who was one of my best friends, committed suicide back in 2016. We were down at Dodge Park for his vigil, and I was like, I'll go to this Weston Linden game. It's just right up Sullivan. I'll just head up there and we'll catch that game. And Antonio was a monster. He had like 24 points and 15 rebounds. I took a picture of him because I didn't have a camera then, so I take like the picture after the game, and he like was flexing, and it was so cool. And I wrote that, and some schools liked the tweets, and fast forward like 4 months later, and it's June, and Wabash Valley Community College in Indiana sends me a message, and they're like, "Hey, we're looking for a big man. Our big commit that we had just decommitted. He's going somewhere else. Do you have anybody?" And I said, Antonio Givens from West. He's like, "Do you have any film?" I said, "No, but trust my word. Like, he's good enough." And they're like, "Okay, we'll take your word for it. We need a big now. We'll offer him tomorrow." So I reached out to his like mentor, Isaac Jefferson. I was like, "Hey, I just helped Antonio get a scholarship offer. Please tell him to commit. Like, when he gets it. Because it was like mid-June. And he committed. He took the offer. Antonio went there. It's funny. He ended up at Kent State too. Played 2 years there, went to Kent State, and then transferred and finished at Pittsburgh State this past year from West High School. A kid who was on house arrest as like a sophomore for truancy. Used to wear a monitor. He had a kid when he was a freshman or sophomore in high school. To go that kid to a college graduate is crazy. And when I met his mom for the first time, it was actually at Buckeye Nissan. It was like my second day there. She was buying a car. And she looks over 2 desks and she's like, "Are you Zach from 270 Hoops?" Like, "Yeah, that's me." She's like, "Oh my, like, thank you so much for what you did for Antonio." I didn't know this, but she said at that time, the day he got the call from Wabash Valley, he was going to apply to work at a warehouse and his basketball career was over. Like, he was going to just end it because he didn't have any offers. And now he's got a college degree. He's been able to travel the country and play basketball for 4 years after high school. Like, it's just when I remember those stories, like, I just get chills because it's like, this is what I was born to do. There's so many other stories, so many other kids that I've helped that I'm maybe not thinking about, but it's those two stories that really like stand out in my mind because they were West Side kids. I grew up in Westgate Park. I grew up, my childhood home was across the street from Franklin Heights. So it's like these areas, like I came from some of those areas. I didn't maybe have the same struggle as other people, but I still identify with those areas, and to help those kids in those areas is crazy. And then to see how it's developed across the whole almost state now is just nuts. And, it's just God giving us that platform, but it's hard work too. Like, I've been blessed. Don't get me wrong, but I've worked my ass off to get to this point, covering 100 games a year, staying up till 1, 2 in the morning, putting in scores and stats and tweeting about all the kids that I see. And then this past year, filming for the first time and breaking down that footage and making video content every day and organizing all that stuff and having a database and putting the time in to be organized. And now I have like a staff calendar where we make sure we cover every single school. Like, it's just developed and grown organically, but it goes back to those roots of hard work. And I get that from my dad. My dad is the ultimate grinder. When I was a senior in high school, I quit playing sports because my mom had a bad back injury. She had to quit working at her job. She was on medication. She wasn't doing well. Her Social Security benefits had expired. I don't think she got approved for unemployment. And my dad had to take a part-time job on top of his full-time job where he worked 60 hours a week to help pay the bills. And I was working probably 30 hours a week, still in high school. I was like, I can't play baseball. I got to go work 5 days a week. And I paid a couple bills for my parents back then. And it was then that like my work ethic was really born. Seeing my dad literally not sleep from Thursday morning until Saturday morning because he would work Thursday night, stay up, go to work Friday night, work Saturday morning, and then he would finally go to sleep. I always thought early on, I'm like, if he can do that, I can stay up and write this report about a game. Like, it's trivial at that point. It's not real life struggle. It's still work, but that's where that hard work and passion and really work ethic was born. And I've just taken that, and I still have a chip on my shoulder. I still work now like I'm that kid that nobody knew trying to get on the radar, and I think that's been the key to our success.
And again, you've covered a lot of. I had a ton of questions for you, and you covered a lot of them as you've gone along. And one of them was, working. I wanted to know, were you still working full time? So you are. How many hours a week you're in the gym, and so I think you touched on that as well. And so. And that's what I want people. I know you got a pretty large following, and if any of those guys are watching this, I want them to know that I don't think it's just not only in the gym do you have to grind and work hard to get the dreams that you have. Outside of the gym, I think a lot of people, like I said, they see ESPN, they see College Game Day, whatever it is, they have this dream that they want to be that, and you can be that. But understand there are so many rings on the ladder before you get there. Nobody just turns around, and unless you're a former athlete, then I think a lot of times they get a little pass and they get to be, they get to be assigned, they get that assignment long before guys like you and myself have to work really, really hard to get into any kind of space that we want to be into. So again, that's why I'm so impressed by you and all the work that you've done. I could literally talk to you for hours because I have so many more questions, and I love the back, seeing behind the curtain at 270. And like I said, everything you guys touch, and I'm 10,000 feet away, but everything I see that you guys touch turns to gold. And that's impressive. But again, it comes at a price of very hard work on your behalf. And so I give you a lot of credit for that. And I love that you give God credit for that. That's awesome. So we probably got to fly through a couple of different things.
I'll be quick. I'll be quick. I'll be
All right,
quick.
because you said your wife's waiting on you for reality TV. So
That's right.
all right, and I got to keep that marriage strong. All right, so first thing, so let's do bullet questions. First one, let's see, what's your coolest memory of the 7 years now? I guess you've been doing this. Coolest memory, coolest memory. Let's go there.
I'd say the play-by-play classic this past year at Nationwide Arena with our logo on the Jumbotron all over the arena, and then LeBron James like sitting across the way from me, and then saying like, shout out to 270 Hoops for the coverage of Central High School basketball. And LeBron, like, I'm not his biggest fan, but he heard it, and I just thought that was pretty cool. So that would be my coolest memory so far.
That's very cool. I had an earlier podcast with a friend of mine in Charlotte, and at the All-Star game, he works for a nonprofit, and at the All-Star game, they won LeBron's $350,000 charity donation. So very cool. So now I've gotten LeBron mentioned on 2 podcasts, and again, MJ's still the GOAT. All right, let me ask you.
I wore the Carolina blue, by the way. I know you're a big Carolina fan. So.
That's my guy, man. But you did mention Kentucky and Duke earlier, and I just let it go. And I just didn't, because you didn't mention Roy. All right. So have you ever met Roy Williams?
I have, we didn't talk, but I was in the same place as him, and he was right behind me when he came to watch Jeremiah Francis and Sterling Manley against St. Charles in the regional semifinals back in 2017. So I've met him. I've met Calipari, and I've talked to Calipari for a while. And the coolest thing, as far as the coaches, I got a text yesterday. It said, "Hey, Zach, this is Chris Holtman. Are you free?" And we talked yesterday for like 25 minutes. So that, when I was telling the story about meeting Thad Matta and being like over the moon, now it's to the point where the current Ohio State coach like reached out to me and wanted to talk to me. It shows what God can do, because I've been reading Exodus recently, and I just finished up Genesis, and you read the story about Joseph, and it's kind of similar where Joseph was sold into slavery and becomes the king of Egypt. Like, that shows what God can do when he puts something in you, and you just got to keep trusting that and following that. So that's where I draw a lot of inspiration from.
Man, that's awesome. I appreciate that. Again, you're using your platform for a much larger cause than yourself. And so again, in case you haven't noticed, I'm a fan. I'm a Zach Beer. And then you come Carolina on. I mean, what else can I say? All right, keeping with it. So 2020 preview, and we'll fly through it. 2020 preview. Who do you got? Assuming COVID doesn't destroy high school basketball, who you got?
So I think the top 2 teams in Division I will be Gahanna Lincoln, Thomas Worthington. They return the most talent. When you got Sean Jones leading the way for Gahanna, you always got a chance to win. But they have some studs, Jarius Jones, Javen Simmons, Maceo Williams. They got pieces at Gahanna, and they have Tony Steib running the show. So look out for them. Thomas Worthington, they return a star-studded cast of Jalen Solinger, Tyrese Huey, Isaac Settles, Amari Effiong, and they have 2 sophomores, and Joey Zalewski, Caleb Miller, that are big-time players. And they got a transfer that moved in from out of state named Kerwin Williams, who's a 6'4", beefy guard who will help them. I mean, if he's a role player for them, like, not many guys will have a role player like that. So look out for Thomas Worthington. The OCC has changed divisions too, so they don't have to play Hilliard Bradley twice a year. Their biggest competition in conference will probably be Dublin Jerome, which, shout out to my boy Richie Beard, but they're not Hilliard Bradley. So Thomas Worthington's in a position to really run the table this year. Westerville Central I know they lost Quincy Clark to prep school, but they return a team that won a district title last year. Tassos Cook is their best player. They have a couple young guys that I'm excited about. Donovan Hunter is a sophomore, 6'7", that's got a lot of potential. Has a chance to be a really good player. And then Miles Poindexter is a kid I think could come on the radar, 6'6" junior, shoots the lights out. So Westerville Central's got some pieces. And I like a sleeper pick. I got 2 sleeper picks. Olentangy Liberty is one of them. They lost in the district semifinals last year, but Greg Nossman is one of the best coaches, and they got to transfer Cooper Davis from Reynoldsburg, who his father Scott was the coach at Reynoldsburg. He's not the coach there anymore. Cooper's lived in that neighborhood the whole time, so now he's going back to his neighborhood school. When he was in 8th grade, their middle school team went undefeated, and they beat Sean Jones's Gahanna team. So a lot of those guys are still on that team, and they still got Henry Hinkle, Andrew Wade, Cam Barkus. They got pieces at Liberty. Look out for them. And your local boys, Hilliard Davidson, is got some pieces now that are going to make them intriguing. Jared Frey, in my opinion, is the number 2 guy in that 2022 class behind Sean Jones. He's a stud. He's going to light the OCC on fire. They got him, and they got a transfer out of state, Jaden Nervous, who's a 6'6" freak athlete junior, jumps out of the gym. I've heard he's got Division I potential. You put those two together. Ryan Paris is a rising junior that I really like, 6'3". He shoots the lights out. And then keep an eye on Peyton Frey, Jared's brother, 6'6", sophomore post. He's a throwback post. He can score over either shoulder, but he can also stretch the floor and bury the 3 ball. You got those pieces, and Coach Congrove is great. He's young. We go to the same church. Shout out One Church. I love Coach Congrove. He's a man of Jesus, and they got some pieces. And in the City League, don't sleep on Walnut Ridge. I know they lost a lot to graduation, but they got some pieces coming back through, either transfers or guys that have moved in. They got some pieces in that 22 class, and they have one of the top rising freshmen that they're going to be there in the City League, and they could, cause a ruckus once again. They won their first district title in 5 years last year. So look out for them. And that's my Division I preview. I'm sure there's other teams I've missed. I didn't talk about the Pickeringtons. Pick Central is going to be loaded as always. You can never sleep on them. Pick North still has pieces, even if Jack Sawyer is not going to play. So Central Ohio is not short on talent. It's everywhere you look. Hilliard Bradley as well. They lost Matt Alaco and Chris Mayfield to graduation, but we still got Keaton Norris and AJ Mergen in the backcourt with Tayshawn Mayfield. Look out for Bradley. And the last thing I'll say is that OCC Central Division is an absolute gauntlet. We're seeing it in football. But when you bring together Hilliard Bradley, Dublin Kaufman, Hilliard Davidson, Upper Arlington, Olentangy Orange, Olentangy Liberty, every one of those programs is good. Every single one. So, yeah, Davidson may be a surprise, but don't be surprised if the winner in that division loses 4 games, because it could happen, because Kaufman's always good, UA is always good, Orange is always going to compete, Liberty is always going to compete, and now Davidson has the pieces to compete. So it's going to be a fun season, assuming we get one. I'm praying that we do. But with the way football is looking right now, it seems like we could have at least 15 to 16 games if minimum. So,
yeah, and I think the Ohio High School Association, I don't want to make that announcement, but I thought I saw somewhere where they said it was going to winners a go. So that's fantastic.
Full steam ahead as of now. Doug Ute, the new deputy executive commissioner, whatever. Full steam ahead. And shout out to Doug Ute. He was one of the first OHSA people that approved me for credentials for the district tournament back in 2013. So shout out to him. I'm still forever thankful for that. I got to get into the barn and cover game on press row. So couldn't have done it without Doug.
Yeah, man. And again, we could talk all night, I think. And you did a little pregame warm up for me. I got Coach Congrove on tomorrow, which will, who knows, actually go up online. But yeah, I can't wait to talk to Coach tomorrow. I want to talk about, obviously, the, what is it now, the 2019 run that they had that was almost Hoosiers-like, right? I mean, great squad.
I wanted that team, man. Christian, the Gilliland kid was just like another guy that just came out of nowhere. And the favorite game I covered that year was when they beat Bradley on the road.
Last second shot, right?
That game was amazing.
That was a March Madness game for a high school team. But yeah, so we got a lot to talk about. And my son was on that team, loves those guys, and literally still keeps in touch with those guys. That team was different. It was special, and that's what I want to talk to Coach about tomorrow. So, all right, last thing before you go to your reality shows. All right.
Hey, I enjoy them too. Like, don't just make it seem like my wife
Oh, it's all good, man.
I can watch some Love Island. I enjoy it. I watch The Bachelor in Paradise. Like, I'm not gonna act like, oh, I'm the man's man. I watch that stuff. It's entertaining.
Happy wife, happy life, man. And
Right.
I think last time we met, I don't even know if you were married yet. If I remember, I think you were getting ready to get married. I think you were engaged, or you were newly married.
That was 2018. So you're right. Yeah, I wasn't married yet. I was engaged at that time. So that's correct.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Last thing before I let you go, you've been doing those showcase events, and am I saying that right? You've been hosting those, or can you talk about those in the 2 minutes that we have? Can you talk about those, because I know those have been really, really taking off for you as well.
Yeah, so those started in June with our challenge series. Basically, it's a live stream event. Elevate Basketball Academy in Dublin, Sevi Steveroff and Matt Steveroff have been very kind and allowed us to use that facility. Ohio Media School, Adam Dell, Score and Error, they've done the broadcast for us. But basically, I've invited 20 kids every single time, one court, 4 teams. And we did 5 of those over the course of the summer for different classes. And we've had 16 different kids across the area and even other parts of the state that have got new scholarship offers since those events, because college coaches can watch live. I've carried that over to the summertime or the fall time with our Proving Ground series. And it means exactly that, because the difference between this event and the other ones is there's no clock. You play to 13. You have to hit a free throw to win after you hit 13. And the winner stays on the court. The first one to win 7 games wins the event. So with that, it's extremely competitive. The past one, the teams were so balanced, and the parity was so crazy that I had to cap it to 6 wins because it was 4:45. We started at 2 p.m. and all 3 teams had 5 wins. And I'm like, we have to get out of here by 5. So I'm not gonna be able to get this done. Next game, first team to 6 wins. And it's been extremely competitive. I've done a top 20 event 2 weeks ago. This past week was the 2023 challenge with 24 players in that class. And then this week I have a small college challenge for 2021 prospects that want to be seen in front of Division III, NAIA, JUCO, NCCAA, USCAA coaches. That will be coming this week. I have kids, 2 from Moeller, 1 from Marion Local. I got kids coming from all over the state, and even a kid flying in from Philadelphia whose dad reached out to me on Facebook months ago. I was like, hey, I see you're doing these live stream events. My son would love to play in them. He's getting interest from Winthrop and Coastal Carolina, and there's nothing for him to play in out here. He goes to school outside of Philadelphia, so they're flying in on Sunday to play in this event. So it's reached all over the country. I've had over probably 300 colleges that have watched one of these events, and there's been schools that have said, yeah, we've offered kids and invited kids on visits from your events that we didn't know before. So that's the purpose, and the coolest thing from that is I haven't charged a kid a dime to play in any of those. They've been free to play in. The only thing we charge for is for the post-game highlight tapes and stuff that, you're already on the live stream, so that's just additional stuff. And even those are cheap. We're not charging an arm and leg for that. So it's all affordable. It's all for the kids and all for, getting them recruited and putting Central Ohio on a bigger map and a bigger radar. So.
And that's fantastic, Zach. And I lied. I had one more question for you. Well, actually one more thing for you, but let me, before I forget that, because my mind's only so big. Man, you could have got rich a long time ago. I've seen this. I've been in this space enough to see that there are people that charge arms and legs to get, to families for them to achieve the hopes that they might have. I think, and you've been in there long enough, you've seen it too.
Yeah.
You're not doing that, man. And I appreciate that about you. You could have been rich a long time ago. You could have walked away from your full-time job and done this full-time because you're charging so much money, and you're not doing that. And I mean that so much. I hope you know that, and I hope anybody that's listening hears that from me. You could have done this and just been in the system, but you're not, and you're different. And that's why I was excited about tonight. So last thing to leave everybody with before we jump off, links. Where can people find you, email you, anything you want to share, man? Here's the mic. Mamba out. Your stage.
So you can find our website, 270hoops.com. You can see some of the articles. If you really want to follow us, you got to find us on social media, because we've evolved as a brand to do a lot of social media, content with videos and photos and things like that. So follow us on Instagram, 270hoops on Instagram. That's our biggest platform. Follow us on YouTube. You can find all the live stream events that we've ran over the past 3 months or so. You can find football content too on our 270 Sports channel. We got some YouTube videos from that. Follow us on Twitter at 270hoops. And then for me on Twitter, Zach Fleer 270. Everything, I think I'm a good follow. I post a lot of informative stuff and bad jokes here and there. But one thing about a bad joke, so I made a joke a couple weeks ago. I was like, hey, I was watching Oklahoma City Thunder, and I was like, hey, remember when Darius Baisley and Dan Goodwin were both Ohio State commits? Like, man, those were good times, because seeing where they're at now, like, it would have been great if they went to Ohio State. Well, when Chris Holtman called me yesterday, he brought that tweet up. And he's like, I think you were joking. I'm like, dude, I just swear I was kidding. I swear I was kidding. So I have to watch some of the jokes that I make, because even the head coach of Ohio State is noticing. So, but yeah, follow me on Twitter there, and you can find all the content. But like you said, I work a full-time job for a reason. It's not that I can't figure out how to make money. Like, I know how I could do it, but I'd never want to sacrifice kind of the vision and the morals that I have, because I feel if I do that, like, God's not going to be happy. And I've had people tell me like, "Oh, God wouldn't have a problem if you charge." I'm like, "Well, unless God tells me that, then I'm not listening to it." Like, I'm passionate about providing things affordable, making things affordable, because when you do that, you can get all the kids that you need, and you can your impact can be tenfold. And I trust that the money somewhere along the line is going to be taken care of. And if I'm meant to work full time at this, it'll happen. Until then, I'm just going to keep grinding and keep trusting God, and see what happens.
Man, and again, I'll tell you, this is a guy that's 40 pounds and 20 years down the road, probably 20 plus years down the road. Man, you're doing everything the right way. You're doing it for the right reasons. We're going to jump off here. You're going to go spend time with your wife watching a reality show. I'm not giving you a hard time. I'm really not.
I
trust me, man.
part of the day.
That's important. Like, how many guys get on and say, hard stop at this time because I'm going to go spend time with my wife. Your priorities are all in the right place. Everything you're doing is effective, and it's effective for a reason. I think God's honoring that, and I appreciate that you've put him in first, and not only in your life, but also on Twitter, on this call, on this podcast, I guess I should say. Man, I appreciate all that. I appreciate you taking the time for me, because again, you're the most powerful guy in high school basketball. I don't care what anybody else tells me. I'm going to take that with me because that's what I believe. I'll probably see you in a gym here or there, I hope. I'm just thankful for you taking the time today. And I think people are going to appreciate the story of 270 Hoops. I know I do, if nothing else. If nobody else watches this, know that I appreciate you spending a little time with me today, sharing your story. And, I'm a fan, and especially because you work Carolina Blue. What else is
right.
it? No, man, you're my guy. I appreciate it. Anything I can do to help you, however that looks, man, I'm always here to help Zach Fleer, DJ Zach Fleer. And no, that's awesome. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Go watch your show with your wife, and I'll catch up with you soon. All right, man.
I will see. I appreciate it, Aaron. Thanks, man.
Thank you.